Hey folks, with us today, Bob from Salad.com. Usually my first question is what problem your company solves, but we first need to get one thing out of the way. How did you get this domain name?
So this domain, we started out with salad.io, and salad.com was parked with an American company that sells ranch salad dressing, and they hadn't used it since 1996. So I just reached out to the webmaster, the Whois contact, the company on LinkedIn, everyone I could, and eventually I hassled them so much that they sold us salad.com after sitting on it for so many years.
That amount of hunting sounds appropriate for this domain. And it's not about vegetables today. So what does your company actually solve for its customers?
Yeah, so we're building a cloud computing service. So, the big names in the industry are the AWS's, GCP, Azure's of the world. We're kind of moving into that space. But instead of building data centers to provide these cloud computing services, we're actually tapping into a very different model, kind of the shared economy, the P2P model, and installing software on gaming PCs. So it's a fully distributed infrastructure. And obviously I could share more on that. But, in short, Nikolas, we're a cloud computing company.
Yeah, and then I would love to stay on the strategic level, because as you mentioned, there are huge companies in this space. So it's a very competitive space. When starting out roughly 6 years ago, what was your strategy going in? Because you knew already that there are elephants in the room you need to hunt down, basically.
Yeah. So the initial kind of aha or why now moment for Salad came from recognizing that the two-sided market problem for what we wanted to build was solved. So we're a marketplace, right? We have suppliers of compute resources and then demand. Back in 2017, we saw that it was the crypto space and proof of work. This represented demand or a customer that was online 24/7, 365. It put a price tag on every connected computer, internet connected computer. And so we were able to essentially not worry about the demand side. So unlike, these big cloud companies that have these huge sales teams and whatnot, we could focus purely on supply. How do we, acquire, motivate, retain these thousands of gamers to provide their compute, to trust us, establish the brand and whatnot, so that we could build up this level of supply. So it's, we're venture funded. It's been the classic kind of journey of get through different gates, get through different milestones, prove, you can overcome kind of the next challenge. And so 4 years we spent building out that supply side with proof of work as our monetization. And now we're kind of turning to the demand side. And to answer your question today, we was very hyper focused on one specific use case within the cloud computing space, which is GPUs. Well, that's the hardware that power this use case, and that's serving AI inference at scale. So that's where we can really compete and have a good selling point compared to the big incumbents.
So is the selling point right this second in mid 2023? Literally, you can't get your hands on NVIDIA chips. You can't get the hardware even if you want to. And due to your access to gamers, we have the GPUs in their PCs. Is that the exact selling point right now?
Yeah. So we are incredibly fortunate. I always say for a startup to be successful, you need to survive long enough to kind of realize the moment where you get lucky. And as you mentioned, we're almost 6 years old now. We always knew AI would have there'd be a customer base for us. But really it wasn't until this recent kind of explosion in the AI space that led to this shortage of GPU chips that you described that really gave us the opportunity to kind of go to market and find customers that were very not only willing to hear us, but happy to hear from us because there is such a GPU shortage. So yeah, that's been a big gift for us to kind of get that initial traction on the demand side.
If you need to hire the right developers and ship fast, then React Squad is for you. A boutique agency that specializes in React and only works with fast growth startups. Get a 14-day risk-free trial and a transparent price of $95 per hour. Visit reactsquad.io to learn more.
And then how does it work in terms of pricing? So for assuming I'm an AI company, I want my models trained. Do I buy a subscription from you and you handle the marketplace side of it in the backend, or do you literally connect me to like for gamers in Connecticut or whatever?
Yeah, no, we handle it all. We abstract it all the way. So the user experience, quite deliberately, we spent a year and a half building this system to be exactly the same as a big box kind of, the big hyperscaler, provider. So they all have the specific product that we offer is a managed container service. You give us your Docker image or your containerized workload. You tell us what hardware requirements you need, what GPU you need, and then we handle all of the rest: the orchestration, the distribution, the failover, logging, observability. So from the customer's perspective, exactly the same as what you would experience at an AWS or GCP. But the price point, we come in, it's around 10% the price, and we could go even lower, but there's a risk that people start to question, like, well.
So let me repeat that: 10% meaning 1/10 of the price that AWS is charging.
Yeah, this is what we're really proud of. It's been a 5-year challenge to build this thing. There's so many different moving pieces in this business, but the unit economics are really phenomenal with what we've built. So if you think about these big cloud providers, they have the capital expenditure, the operational expenditure of these data centers, the maintenance, the upgrade cycle. We don't have that. We are tapping into hardware that already has been purchased for a different use case, is sitting there latent, unused for 20 hours per day. The internet's been paid for. There is a little bit of electricity to run your computer, of course, but it's a completely different model that kind of gives us an input cost that is very different to a centralized cloud. Now, obviously, there's trade-offs, right? But that's the big unique selling point for us: is we come in at a fraction of the cost.
What would be one of those trade-offs, like from a customer perspective?
Yeah, so it's more mental than anything. The team and I have spent a year building out the security layers here. We partition the machine at kind of almost the hardware level, like the hypervisor level. We create and install our own operating system, so it's completely secure, independent from the host machine. But there's that mental challenge of if you're a customer of Salads, my code is going to be running on some random machine somewhere rather than the known entity of AWS or Google. But it's funny because if you go to Google and kind of search and put your time frame of pre-2010, that's when the cloud was first emerging. All of the news articles are saying, I'm never going to move to the cloud because I don't trust them with my data, right? So it's the exact same problem that the big cloud providers faced 15 years ago. It's the same problem that Uber and Airbnb face. A complete stranger is going to pick you up in their car, or a complete stranger is going to stay in your spare bedroom. So it's just a matter of time and kind of building the social proof, building that track record where there's no incidents or breaches, and kind of making a name for ourselves from there. So that would be one of the problems. But there's obviously a lot of technical layers I could start to delve into there. But like you say, let's keep it high level here.
I would love to switch gears a bit from more of the product conversation to the company building side. So you already mentioned that you're venture-backed. How much did you raise so far, roughly?
Yeah, our most recent round was a $17 million US Series A. That was last year, early 2022, and we had a handful of kind of like pre-seed and seed rounds prior to that.
Yeah. So let's do it like roughly 20 million likely went in or something. And I stalked you on LinkedIn as one does, and you have like roughly 50 employees. Is that right in terms of the ballpark, or how big is the company in terms of the headcount?
Yeah, there's about 50, just shy of 50, kind of 40 and change we have.
Yep. And then how, for such a internally technical, like deeply technical product, how's the team split? Like, is it like half engineers, or like how's the split between engineering, marketing, operations, and so on? I always find that super interesting.
Yeah. So we only just made our first marketing hire about 4 months ago. So that's very new, kind of a one-man team there. As you kind of suggested, very heavy on engineering, right? What we are building is deeply technical. We have work to do on, at the operating system, work to do with orchestration, distribution work. And then client side, server side, there's security, there's a really big engineering team, and they're kind of split into squads. So we have a product manager working with, a handful of product managers, each working in kind of a squad, which are made up largely of engineers. But then kind of one level up, because we're a marketplace, we have sort of the demand side, customer side, squads and teams. And then we have the supply side squad that looks after kind of the gamers. So there's several kind of splits within the org chart.
I would love to double click on that, because for the people who might be like pre-series A or just like before like a big seed round, and like hiring is ahead of them basically. So in starting from the top, so you have a CTO, I assume, and then below the CTO is there then engineering manager. Like, could you break down the org chart of the engineering organization for us?
Yeah, we don't have C-level titles yet. But the equivalent of essentially head of engineering, and then we have an engineering manager that then coordinates. There's actually two kind of engineering / project managers. One engineering manager for the demand side and one for the supply side, and so and then engineers in each of those squads. So visually, that's kind of what the org chart looks like.
How big is a squad? Like, how many engineers per squad?
It depends. We as big as 5 and as small as 1. There's a squad where there's just a kind of a one-man, army looking after the crypto side of things. So, but it's very fluid. It's such is the nature of the startup. You constantly have to kind of revisit whether because your human resources and what they're focused on, is a reflection of capital allocation. Where are you spending your money, and is that the right thing for the company right now? And maybe we're unique in the sense that it's quite complicated. There's supply side, demand side juggling there, but we're constantly. It is quite fluid. We do kind of pull people from here and throw them there, and it's great in that sense that everyone on the team really gets to work with everyone else. So we don't have a huge emphasis on the org chart here. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. No, I always find that super interesting, just because we try to like go into the nitty gritty, because that's like in the end, when you listen to a podcast, that's like the things you can actually apply if you're building your org right now. And then, okay, so of the 47, like how many are roughly engineers then? Just like roughly.
Yeah, probably about half. I would say about 20. About 20 are engineers.
So then we have the engineering department covered. We have the one marketing person covered. What's the rest of the split in terms of the rest of the peeps?
Yeah. So for on the product team, and then we've got community manager, and a couple of guys doing kind of go-to-market on the supply side, a couple of guys doing go-to-market on the demand side. So
are those then basically like salespeople, or what do you mean if you say go-to-market there?
Yeah. So these guys have been with us for for years now, like 3-4 years. And another thing in a startup, you wear many different hats, right? So particularly if you are truly building something new and unique, it's not like you can go out and hire for that specific skill set. So we kind of within the ranks have taken on the supply side the skill or the discovery that we made that we then kind of developed into our own internal skill set is influencer marketing. So these two guys working very closely with influencers. And then on the demand side, we actually borrowed that because a lot of our customers have big Discord servers and you want to meet your customers where they are. So the influencer marketing side of it is a very different day-to-day kind of focus than direct sales, but on paper it's very different, but it's actually quite similar. They're in Discord, they're trying to make these connections, drum up these conversations, and it's working. So it's direct sales. Eventually we want to be product-led growth, so therein comes the marketing side of it for kind of the brand awareness, but then it's influencer marketing on the supply side of this marketplace.
Interesting. And then how, as you said, you're just starting out with that Series A to build on like the actual brand to be very known. How do you plan that currently?
Yeah. So on the supply side, I'd say we're very well known. For five years now, we would have hundreds of influencers that we've worked with, and that's evergreen content. That's always up there on YouTube. And we got the social proof, like the Trustpilot and big Discord community and whatnot. So we're known there. On the demand side, that's the challenge we're kind of facing now. And specific to us, one of the big challenges we've faced the last year is we can support any workload, any use case in any vertical with any buyer. You could be a data scientist, you could be an artist doing rendering, you could be an engineer doing simulations, you could be, DevOps doing CI/CD. We had to pick something, right? Because if you dilute yourself too much, you'll never make a name for yourself. So we kind of picked the hot flavor of the month right now, which is AI, serving AI inference at scale, but specifically stable diffusion. So generating images at scale. And we're fortunate that some of the big names in the space are using us as their back end. And so we're kind of marching towards a big announcement with the biggest stable diffusion community in the space. So I think that's going to, be incredibly helpful for us in terms of like establishing the brand, because like I said, we just hired a marketing hire recently. We're not on any market landscape maps. So we're only just launching the product now after kind of a year and a half of building this container service. So we're shifting now into that next chapter. And I think it's going to come through just big name relationships is kind of the strategy right now.
I mean, you're quite experienced as an entrepreneur compared to maybe the average or at least the younger listeners. How do you manage the conflict is maybe the wrong word, but the pull between knowing that going narrow and having focus is what is needed to have an easier way penetrating a market compared to, especially for venture-backed companies, you kind of have the obligation to go big. So how do you plan like the going in steep and then broadening?
Yeah, with clarity comes confidence. So over the last 18 months while we've been building this thing, one of the truths that we've known, one of the things that is true, is that our TAM, our total addressable market, is massive because it's any job, any workload, any use case. But for us to realize that future, we have to survive, right? And so to survive and subsequently thrive, you've got to get that initial traction, and if you dilute yourself too much, that failure mode of running out of money is very real, probably the primary failure mode. So I think picking a horse and kind of backing it and making sure, and if you pick the wrong horse, because that can happen, changing your mind quickly and kind of pivoting quickly is important. But and as long as you build the strategy based on, okay, what milestones specifically in terms of like revenue do I need to hit to unlock this next round? Series B, Series C, whatever it might be. And make sure that what you're going after and kind of focusing your efforts on is big enough, and you have enough clarity and therefore confidence to actually hit, cross that threshold to unlock future funding to then go after bigger horizons. And we've faced this question, and there's been fierce debate internally many times, 2 times really in our history, where we've had to pick something, put our efforts into it, and hit the metrics needed to then unlock more capital. Because with more cash, then you have the ability to kind of grow into that future addressable market.
So first off, I love the quote of clarity brings confidence. And then on the 2 times you had to make that decision, what's a framework you use to think through that?
Yeah, it's so the challenge we faced is probably unique or less common for most startups. That workload agnostic nature of Salad meant there were many right answers. But how did we get to a point where we have that confidence, so that where we have that clarity on, and therefore we're confident this is the right answer? And so for us, it was an exercise of essentially my time, founder time, spray and pray, or no, that's the wrong expression, but compartmentalize my time into different use case, different vertical, and essentially do like a scientific experiment where, okay, I reach out to 100 people in this vertical with this use case, 100 in this vertical with use case, and so on and so on. We started with about, I think it was 18 or 19 use cases, and then try and find some signal, who's actually getting back to you, which of these potential customers have a pain and deep enough pockets, for you to find a fit with your product. So for us, it was a case of trial and error, but I don't know if that's the right strategy for every startup, right? It was kind of unique to us.
No, but what I think people can learn from that is you didn't make a theoretical discussion out of the thing, but you actually went out, got data, and based on that data, you made a decision. And it wasn't just like people like ramming their heads against each other and just like whoever is the better debater just won.
Yeah, that's a sure way to die, right? Or to not make it is convince yourself that you've got it right, because you've never got it right. You need to be out there chatting to people, but it's super tough. It was probably the hardest year for me. I was chatting to another founder last year who was describing like trying to find product market fit as a lonely walk through the desert, because you can go months where you're going after having these conversations, and it's just you're just not finding that signal that you need. So there was a risk we never would, right? We never would find a home for our product, but thankfully that's not the case. We we found it eventually, but that was the methodology that we used. Yeah, and the conversations we're having now are bringing that confidence. We are replicating this response rate from these customers that we're reaching out to, or these prospects that we're reaching out to, and turning them into customers.
I love that. And then as a final question before we wrap up, what's your big vision for Seller.com?
Yeah, we're looking to democratize access to compute resources, but by allowing individuals to share their resources. So by being the easiest and most trusted way to share your computer, we kind of see a future where computing resources, particularly in the era of AI, are more accessible to everyone. And that's what we're aiming to accomplish here at Salad.
I love it. Well, thanks a ton for coming on today.
Thank you, Nikolas.
If you like this episode, then you'll love the SaaS Operator, a weekly newsletter brought to you by EarlyNode, with actionable insights from SaaS experts in the industry delivered right to your inbox every Tuesday for free. Visit earlynode.com to subscribe.